Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you're alright. It's been a long while since I didn't sit here and post a few videos. So today I wanted to chat with you about the books that I read from September to basically January. And the reason why I want to do that is because although I have tons of videos that I want to film, this is a way of kind of encapsulating my kind of last leg of the year, and I wanted to do it like this so I can actually close 2020 like forever. And for those who don't know me, hi, my name is Clara and I'm the owner of this channel, The Ink Path. Here we talk about books a lot, in English and in Spanish. That's why maybe you listen to me and it doesn't sound British or American. That's because I am actually Spanish, though I am using the channel as a way of controlling and checking my level of English, because I started watching booktube in English actually. So having said that, having presented myself, of course you can follow me down below on all my social media. I have a page on Facebook. I have, Twitter, Instagram, stuff like that. And I also leave you down below my Goodreads page. The first book I read or I finished in September was Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I listened to this on audiobook read by the author, and for those who don't know me, I really like Neil Gaiman's stories, but I decided to read Coraline as an audiobook. First, because it was actually read by Neil, and I really like that, and I like how he uses his voice to read and to modulate this story. And I have to admit that although I like the story and I like how Neil Gaiman gave the story another kind of mesmerizing, dark and tone with his reading, I felt a little bit not disappointed but ambivalent about it, like indifferent about it. Mainly because I I I saw the film, which I know is not the same as the book, but I have the feeling that I am very old for the story. I think if my 10-year-old self would have read this when this came out, I would have adored it, and I wouldn't have sleep. But I like it, and I gave it 3 stars. But I was expecting more in a way, so I gave it 3 stars. Later, I picked from the library as well, Levana Fairless, sorry, Fairest Levana's story, which is the next installment in the Lunar Chronicle series or saga by Marisa Meyer. Last year, I believe I started this saga, and I've read so far the books that are Cinder, Scarlet, and Cress, which are the retellings, these futuristic retellings of Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, and Rapunzel. So this is actually a prequel. This is the story of the evil character in the whole saga, which is who is Empress Levana. And I find Levana a very interesting character. It's one of my favorite characters of the whole saga. But I was a little bit taken aback with this book. Don't get me wrong, I think it was very well constructed. It was very well integrated in the whole universe of the Lunar Chronicle series, but I don't like one aspect of the story that gives the main motive of the characters to be, of this character in particular, to be so evil. I think I'm not going to go into detail, but I think it's a very common thread. It's a very common plot to use for authors, but it's very damaging for a collective of people, a group of people, a minority, and I think it's very kind of dangerous as well. So because of this threat of this matter that I'm not going to go into detail here, I gave it 2 stars. So after that, I read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. First of all, without giving you more information about the book, I want to tell you that I arrived to the point of knowing about this book because Victoria Schwab, the author of several of my favorite books like Vicious, she did an Instagram live recommendation kind of video, and she was theming, or she was navigating or moving towards the theme of the Black Lives Matters movement and the representation of race and how race is perceived, and she was talking about other books, non-fiction books, and other kind of poetry collections and stuff like that. And she arrived to this book, which at the time when I first heard about it was actually a new release thing, or it was about to be released in a month or so. So this book is a YA book, a contemporary YA book that it doesn't talk about racism per se. This is the story of Enchanti, a girl who, a black girl, who, because of a matter of a contest, I believe, she gets in contact with one of her favorite musicians, and he decided to make her his own protege as a way of helping her reach fame. And through this relationship, we start seeing things that are a little bit upsetting. This is about grooming, about bullying, about kind of abuse of several things. This is about kind of sexual assault. This is a very heavy themed story about violence against women in several ways, and how women are perceived when they speak out. And I find this book was an incredible book, a very hard book, but I really like it. I will talk about it more in detail in the review, but I give it 5 stars. Next, I actually I listened to Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. You know, I like Rupi's poems. I loved The Sun and Her Flowers, which is the second poemary collection that she published. I knew about Milk and Honey. I knew it was the first poemary collection or poetry collection that she published, and because of it, she kind of became the figure so important in the poetry sphere that she is. But I wanted to start with the other one, the second one, because I thought it was more compelling to me. And now that I adore this story, this first poetry collection, I decided to go to the first kind of book that she published, which is Milk and Honey. And I decided to listen to it on audiobook read by the author, continuing with the Neil Gaiman experience, but now in poetry. And I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. Then again, this is not a problem of the poems. I really like the majority of the poems, but my issue with this book, and I'm going to sound horrendous for this, but my issue with this is that while I was listening to this, I got access to fragments of the proper, like the book in English as well, and I was comparing the way Ruby was reading her own poems and also the text, and I was, in the way I was reading them in my head, the pauses and the intonation was completely different. And also because in the way she read it, she read the poetry collection, I wasn't sure that the poems were transmitting as much as I thought originally they were going to be. Again, continuing on, I read Adultly Education, which is the first installment in the Stockholmans I don't know if it's a duology, what it is, I'm not sure. This is a story, a dark academia kind of a story by Naomi Novik. You know that I adore Naomi Novik. I read Uprooted in Spanish, and it's one of my favorite books ever. But when I decided to go to Naomi Novik again, I heard about this kind of dark academia, kind of YA, kind of dark witchcraft school that she was preparing, and I was on the hype already. And I requested this from Nekali, and I read it, and it didn't appeal to me. I like the themes, I like the school, I like the kind of background and the ambience and how it was portrayed, this kind of environment and how the world was created, the world building. But then I got into the characters and I got into the plot, which was very slow, and I didn't enjoy it. Originally I give it 3 stars because Naomi Novik knows how to do endings, and I was very thrilled at the ending. But then as the time passed, I decided against this book, and I saw that I wasn't going to, or I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I have originally. I will talk to you more about it in the review because I want to do a review of this. But it's a 2-star for me. The premise and the world building and all of that is very interesting, but I didn't like the execution, and I think it has some problematic stuff that needs to be tackled and fixed. I don't know if I will read the second installment. I hope I do, but I gave it 2 stars. And then in November I listened to 1984 by George Orwell in this kind of radio dramatization format that also includes a biography by the author and the influence that the novel received from several events and several literary kind of currents. And I like it. I gave it 4 stars. It was very, very compelling and very immersive, and I was very scared at some points. Then after that I listened to a radio dramatization of El Monte de las Animas by Gustavo Adolfo Bécquer. Now this is a Spanish author, a Spanish poet, and a Spanish short story collection kind of stories, and he lived during the Romanticism, and he was extremely good at doing short stories, kind of ghostly, scary, misty sort of stories. And one of his most famous short stories is El Monte de las Animas, which is the short story that I listened to. El Monte de las Animas would be translated as the the hill of the ghosts or something of that sort. I listened to this on radio dramatization, which was very scary, very scary, very short but very powerful, and it's one of my favorite short stories of this author, and it's very proper romanticism style, this kind of eerie surroundings and this kind of focus on the legends and the ghosts and what those legends are told or are said in this kind of village, and how if you don't follow what the people from the village says about these legends of this wood, of this hill in the woods, you are going to be in trouble. And oh boy, you got into trouble. I really like this short story. In December, then I jump into The Invisible Life of Adi Larue. I read it in Spanish and I adore this book. As I told you before, B. Schwab, who is the author of this book, which I mentioned before, it's one of my favorite authors, and I knew very little about this story. This is the story of Adi, who, when she's very young, she makes a deal with kind of a deity. We don't know if it's good or bad, and she makes a deal to basically live forever. The problem is that this entity that she makes a deal with is a little bit tricky. He, because for the majority of the time he's going to be a he, makes it so in the way that yes, Adi is going to be immortal, but no one is going to remember her. So you may meet Adi, but if you turn around and you go to a different room, when you re-enter this room in where Adi is placed, you are not going to remember her. This is a story about immortality and deals, but it's about at the root, at the core of the story, is this idea of being human and experience and live different experiences through life and cherish those small moments that make you feel happy and those moments which are influential not only to you but to others. And this is also a gift to culture. This is a story about making marks and the importance of different types of cultures, not only books or not only music, which are the most kind of known maybe, but about the importance of thinking and free thinking and loving and studying philosophy or painting. This is about being important to people in a way you influence them to be better or to pursue what they want to do. I don't know, I fell in love with the story. I was waiting very long for this story to come around, and I wasn't disappointed. I gave it 5 stars, and I fell in love with it. After that, this is December we're talking about. I read another book for my work that we are not going to discuss here, and then I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I think his surname is pronounced like that. I listened to this on audiobook, and this is a contemporary fiction. No, not sure if it's contemporary. It's other fiction, and it's the story of Nora, who at the very beginning of the story she decides that she wants to die, and she commits suicide. But when she dies, instead of, I don't know, going to hell or to heaven, if you believe in that, she ends up in a library where she can actually see in the form of books all the lives that she could have led if she took different decisions in her life. And if she opens the books and starts reading, she gets transported into that life in her own body as if she wasn't dead. So the thing is that in this library, she is told that if she finds a book that she loves more than her current ending life, she is able, or she's going to be able to live like that, like in that chosen life forever. This is a story I was very moved by. It was a complicated story, to be fair, and let me just stop because the battery of the computer is dying. Okay, this is all set. As I was saying, this was a very interesting story. I found it very compelling. I find some resources, writing resources, used very that maybe don't work very well, but I enjoyed the book overall and I gave it 3 stars. Then after that, I read, I think, I listened to Poems to Live Your Life by Chris Riddell. Chris Riddell is an illustrator and also he has done this poems collection for a while. I read one about love last year, I believe. And these poems collections are poems written by several authors, dead or alive. And in this one, instead of focusing only about love, like the one I listened last year, it's about life itself and phases of life and changing and growing. And I think it happens in the same way with the love poem collection that he also illustrated, because the importance of this story, of these poemaries both, is that they are actually illustrated by Chris Riddell, apart from being selected by Chris Riddell. And I think I like this story. I give it 3 stars, but I feel like in the same way I said with the love poem collection selected by him, that the fact that I'm listening to them on audiobook instead of having the illustrated physical version of the book with me kind of diminished the book, because I love his way of illustrating, and I bet that the physical copy with the finished illustrations are way better, or at least that add a lot to the proper poems. But I like it. I give it 3 stars. Lastly, in December, I read Tú también puedes volar by Cristina Martín de Francisco. Tú también puedes volar is a Spanish YA book, a contemporary YA book about a girl called Diana. I think I told to you about this book before, but it's about a girl called Diana who has cerebral palsy, and she has to center or to be focused on the first a new year in high school. And in this new year, 2 members of her class suffer a car accident, and she has to because of this, she's put up with one of these members of this couple that she doesn't get along with, but they have to navigate this new year, academic new year, because Diana has to help them out, both of the members of this couple. And I gave it 4 stars. I think it's a very interesting story. It's a YA story, but it tackles disability and disability representation. And it's not only being in a wheelchair, it's about getting tired very easily, it's about getting going to physiotherapy sessions and how you get stronger by them, but also how tiring they are, how insecurities creep out when it comes to socializing with people who don't normally understand you. I don't know, I love this story. To be fair, I have a review of this book. In January I read a total of two books. I read Los secretos de las brujas, una iniciación a nuestra historia y a nuestros saberes. I'm not sure if it has a translation in English, let me check. This book about witches that I just mentioned is a kind of short book. You are probably watching it there in the bed. It's the black one. It's let me just check if it has yes, you have a edition in English, which is Secrets of the Witch, an initiation into our history and our wisdom, by Julie Legere, Elsa White, and Laura Perez, which is the illustrator, sorry. Basically, this is a non-fiction book, a very thin non-fiction book about the history of witches and witchcraft and what it meant to be a witch from the Asian history and the Egyptians and stuff like that up to now. I don't know a lot about witchcraft, although it's a topic that I've been always interested in. So I decided that not only because the book is very beautiful, but because I like the topic, I wanted to start with this book. I will probably read more stuff about Wicca and witchcraft and witches. So if you have any recommendations about that, you can leave it on the comment section down below. Because now we are going to talk about, I think, the last book I read in January. Yes, I read this, or I finished this on the 23rd of January, and this is an audiobook that I really liked. This is The True Life of Libya by Josie Silver. This is a contemporary kind of fiction book, a romance actually, and it's about a woman called Lydia Bird who loses her fiance on the night of her birthday because he has a car accident. And when she actually goes through this brutal experience, she has trouble processing it, and she goes to the doctor, and the doctor gives her some pills to allow her to sleep better. And when she takes these pills for sleeping, she discovers that she wakes up in this alternate reality in where her fiance is not dead. So she has now to make a decision of either stay in her root life, in her normal life, or jump into this kind of alternate reality with these pills and live with her the love of her life. I'm not a very romance reader, but this book caught my eye and I adore it. I gave it 4 stars. I love how it was narrated. I love how grief was depicted here. But grieving is not the same as stop living. So you have this kind of ups and downs of griefs, while alternated with this kind of sleeping world in which Lydia is reliving certain, or not reliving, as like living this normal life with with her fiance, which in this version is not dead. And I really like it. I didn't know Josie Silver, but I will probably find more books by her and read them because I love how she deals with, in this case, is grief, but the way of the characters are kind of built up, and their relationships are very organic, and I love that. not only the romantic one, but the friendships and stuff. Well, this is it. This is all I read in these long months, and I hope I don't take that much time, or I can come back sooner than later. I hope you liked my video, and tell me, oh please, tell me what you read, or your favorite books you read during these months from September to January. One per month, okay? Pick your favorite of the months. Bye.